Hey guys, Zach here with Minimal Escapes, and today I want to talk to you guys about hardscape. Now, hardscape plays a very important piece across the aquarium hobby. It is what I would consider one of the backbones of your aquarium, and it plays an especially important role in the planted aquarium hobby. So, let's get into it. Now, in the planted aquarium hobby, hardscape refers to the hard materials that you're going to be using inside of your aquarium outside of the plant and substrate. Generally, I like to categorize these into two main groups, and that's going to be your wood and your rock. And deciding on which of these materials to use can be very important. You can go for a tank that's all wood, you can go for a tank that's only rock, or you can create a mixture of both. And deciding which rocks to use and which wood to use is very important. Now, choosing the type of wood or the type of rock that you're going to use in your aquarium is the first step in the hardscaping process, right? Whether you choose to go with an inert stone or a rock that's going to change your water's chemistry is what's going to determine your sort of longevity of the tank. Now, what I want to mention here is that it's super important to choose a rock that you find visually appealing and not to choose one that's just inert because you don't want to take care of that. But it is important to consider that some rocks do have effects on a tank, whether it's changing the pH, changing the hardness, whatever it may be, it can affect the tank, and it's important to do your research on the type of rock that you want to put into your tank. The same can also go for wood. Certain types of woods are going to release tannic acid, better known as tannins, and this can affect the visuals of your tank, creating murky darkness, a sort of tea-colored water. And that's great if you're going for something like a black water tank. However, for a lot of people, that's not what they're going for, so it's important to know whether or not your wood is going to release tannins. And one way to avoid this is just to soak your wood for a little bit before or boil it in a pot of water, and that'll release a lot of the tannins. Another piece with the wood is you can collect your wood outside, but it is important to know what kind of wood you're working with so you know what might arise later down the road. And it's also super important to boil it as well to get rid of anything that might be hitchhiking on the wood. Another thing to consider with wood is just the, I would say, hardness of the wood. If you're using something like a eucalyptus root that's much sturdier, it's probably not going to break down so much so as compared to some other types of wood. And that is if you're going to keep your tank operational for a long period of time. The other thing with the hardness of wood is that certain types of fish do like to chew on wood, like plecos, so if you do have a softer wood, they might start taking chunks out of the wood, and it can affect your aquarium's health. So just be considerate of that when you are choosing your materials. Once you've chosen your materials, it's time to move on to the step that I enjoy the most, and that's going to be creating your scape. Now, the materials are going to really dictate how this goes, right? Depending on if you've got sort of rounded, smooth rocks and wood, it'll be more of a smooth flowing scape, but if you've got something that's more jagged and sharp, you might have a scape with some sharp turns or some peaks, like a mountain or valley. But it's very important to create a design that is cohesive and that does really attract the eye. With the design process itself, it's very important to consider a multitude of different things before deciding on a final scape. The first thing that I like to do when creating a hardscape is consider the fish's needs. So this does mean that you are going to have to think ahead and think about what fish you're trying to keep and create a hardscape, a design that is going to benefit the fish. An example would be if you're going to keep a community of cichlids, it's super important that you do add in visual blocks so that if they do get aggressive, they have ways to get away from each other. Now, I'm not saying this is an absolute rule, but you do want to consider your fish's behaviors or what behaviors they may exhibit before you set your design in stone. Another part with the design is creating something that you enjoy. If you pick a design and you're kind of so-so on it, then just leave it for the day and come back to it the next day. If you're so-so on it, you might not want to see the longevity of the tank, so you might throw some plants in and then just let it get overgrown or overrun with algae and then just redo it. I would much rather that you guys pick a scape And then if you really love it, you can move on. But if you don't, I would say leave it for a day, come back to it, and then change it up. Because as soon as you do love the scape, you're going to want to see that tank prosper, and you're going to want to see the longevity of it. So it's going to just aid in the overall health of the aquarium. Along with creating an aesthetically pleasing as well as functional design with the hardscape, it's also important to consider how you may integrate plants into your scape. Well, generally hardscape refers to the wooden rocks, as I said previously. Hardscape can be made or broken with the integration of plants. If you leave little nooks and crannies for epiphytes, this can really add a lot to the hardscape and create a beautiful aquarium. But if you don't think ahead and try and include proper areas for these plants, it can lead to it looking very last minute and sort of roughly put together. But this is all in the designing process, and it's all going to be trial and error. With materials and design well thought out and with lots of effort put into it, there's really not much more to hardscape. It's very simple as long as you keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things and don't rush things. If you keep it simple and you remember that, you're not going to struggle. If you do make mistakes, it's fine, it happens, it's not permanent, and you can just go back and fix it or start anew. But that is everything for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please consider subscribing, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.